Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Knitted Art History, where I'm sitting telling you some art history stories while knitting. And welcome back to another video. As you can see by the name of the video that we're not going to be talking about an artist as I promised in the previous video, but today's topic is also very interesting. But the next video will be definitely about an artist. I already have everything prepared. Today we're going to be talking about African art, about African ancient art, cave paintings. Well, there's not a lot of information online, so I was taking a lot of stuff from different resources, from different these small articles from museums, and some also there is a bit of information back in Soviet books also. So I was picking up the information, and so I will not be able to recommend you anything to read also on this topic. Another thing that I will tell about is about pictures. In this video also they will be kind of all over the place, so they will be just an examples for you to understand what are we talking about, but I will not get into very into details into each and every one of them, because again, not a lot of info and I don't want to to make just free interpretations. So today's video will be just we'll be talking overall. I will just tell you what is this, where is it, how it was found, datings, what was found, and etc, etc. So yeah, so this is everything. I don't have anything to add, and without further ado, let's dive into our video today. We are learning about African art thanks to archaeological studies mostly. So these archaeological diggings, they're opening up, the book of African art for us. Mostly it was believed previously that the main part where the art was developing was tropical Africa. Where the Sahara part is also once was well, a very nice place to live, because I think that a lot of you know that. Because I suppose that my video get into people who are interested not just in art history but overall history, and that Sahara at some point was widely inhabited place with a lot of rivers, with a lot of vegetations, forest and all of everything, a lot of different animals and a lot of tribes, like hunting tribes, cattle breeding tribes, the tribes that were more into agriculture and etc. And in Sahara, thousands of rock paintings of various styles and periods have been found. The oldest one dates back to 5th millennium BC, even though now the study shows that we can actually talk even about 10th, 12th millennium BC. And the earliest paintings are fairly actually modern, so they were made in the period, modern period of time, and even contemporary period of time, as we can say. So it was Second World War, after Second World War. So yeah, so the life goes on there. So the places you can see beneath the video that we'll be talking about today is called TASSILI N'AJJER. It translates as the plateau of rivers. So there's no rivers now there, but it was a very good place. And this place is located in southeast Algeria, so it is North Africa. Local population, obviously, they knew about these paintings, and they knew that there is such thing in their countries, because this Taurecs and everyone else, at some point they were creating these paintings also, so obviously they were familiar with that. But in terms of official search and official studying of this place, when Europeans came, Western Europeans, not just Europeans, but Western Europeans, mostly French people came, because Algeria was under France at some point. And yeah, so the first time it was noticed by some researcher, Cartier, in 1909. However, there was not a lot, as I understood, done back then there, so we are moving forward till 30. So the French officer Brennan, he spent 8 years in this area of Sahara, so from 1932 to 1940s. And while he was there, he made a lot of different sketches, which he later showed to a scholar, to researcher Henri Lhote. So this Lhote, he was a pretty popular scholar of Paleolithic art, so a lot of scholars trusted him and his thoughts pretty blindly, as we can say, to be honest. We will be talking, remember this name, because we will be talking at the end of the video about him and certain situations. Lhote, he planned to create an exhibition with these sketches. However, the Second World War started, and obviously it was not possible to make. However, after the war, Braille, he published Brennan's sketches accompanying them with a description. And since the sketches were imprecise and conveyed only the idea, they were given a very free interpretation. In general, Braille had, well, obviously rather colonial views, which only harmed the research and everyone who blindly believed Braille and his researches and his ideas. In 1935, so the French archaeologist Regas, he briefly visited the area, familiar with many paintings of the Sahara. Regas, he created a rough periodization of the drawings. He had like two groups of them. So he put it in the first group, the petroglyphs that showed some animals of tropical fauna. So it's hippopotamuses, rhinoceroses like cattle, giraffes, buffaloes, antelopes, and ostriches. And in the second group, he included multicolored and more conventional paintings with cattle and chariots. Very approximate and careful dating required verification, and in 1956-57 the leadership of the expedition was entrusted to Henri Lhote, who has already, so he visited already this area in 1934. He was also very familiar and he trusted Braille, and he even participated in the publication of his works. Also remember this name, we will be talking, the end of the video we'll be talking about him. Later studies by the Italian Fabrizio Mori, who surveyed a nearby area on the border of Algeria with Libya, gathered information that helped to determine the dating of the Tassili images more precisely. Studies of palynology, so this is the branch of botanical studies that they're studying the pollen and some spores of different plants. So these studies of palynology have shown that the estimate age of the drawings is older than previously thought. Excavations in nearby areas have shown that the Neolithic of the Sudanese tradition, that is TASSILI N'AJJER and Enedi. Enedi is like a mountainous plateau in the northeast of the Republic of Chad, near the border with Sudan. So this Neolithic tradition predates actually the Neolithic of Southern Europe, and Cyrenaica is like the historical region of modern Libya, and ceramics in the eastern and central Sahara appeared at the same time as ceramics in Western Asia. Getting back to Henri Lhote, because this is like considered to be one of the most, if not like the most detailed research and study of this place. And as I said, it began in 1956-57. So archaeologists, they worked there for 16 months, and they were headed by the already mentioned Frenchman Henri Lhote. In 1958, he published his book À la découverte des fresques de Tassili. Overall, it was written like some kind of a journal, as we can say. So I haven't read it like fully. I just searched it up and looked up what it is about. So he just basically described his experience and how things were going on. I think you can find it actually in English, because I found it in, well, unfortunately just in Russian translation, but I don't think it has Ukrainian translation, so I'm not sure. Maybe it is actually, you can find an original, or maybe even an English translation. I don't know. If I will find it, I will obviously link it down below. Well, this book immediately became a bestseller, and well, technically still in the top of archaeology books. As a result of the excavation, it was not just about these paintings. They also found different burials, different like fragments of some pots, of stone tools, as well as like some arrowheads and spearheads, bones even of people, of various animals were found. Overall, we can say that this Tassili region turned out to be a museum of rock art in the literal sense of this word. The place, which covers an area of more than 70,000 square kilometers, is an African national park and biosphere reserve now, and since 1982, TASSILI N'AJJER has been also recognized as part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So the largest ensembles of rock art in the Sahara are located mainly in the highlands of TASSILI N'AJJER, TASSILI N'AGHAR, Tibesti, and in the areas adjacent to them, so Fezana, Adrar, Iforasi, Airi, and etc., Enedi or Enedi, etc. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it, and I'm sorry about the stresses. I have very big problems with stressing words correctly. trying. I'm trying my best. Nowhere actually in the world do rock paintings reach such a high density. The plots of many of them testify to the fact that in the Neolithic era, the Sahara had a more humid climate, a rich flora and also fauna. Tassili's frescoes depicted the entire evolution of Sahara from a once blooming savanna to, well, modern lifeless desert. As the researchers found, Sahara at some point experienced two, well, we can say, wet periods. So the first one ended in the Lower Paleolithic era, so it's from around 3 million years ago until around 300,000 years ago, and the second lasted about 6,000 years until about the second millennium BC. Today's scientists distinguished four major periods of the development of rock art in Sahara, associated with climatic changes in this area. So the first period is the period of ancient buffalo, so it dates from 8 till 6 millennium BC, or it is also called the era of hunters. The second period is a period of domestic bulls, or it is also called the age of shepherds. It's about 3,500 BC. Third period is a period of a horse, about 1,500 BC. And the last one is the period, the camel period, around the 2nd century AD already. So paintings and petroglyphs of the last three periods are found almost everywhere in the Sahara. So it is this of shepherds, of horse, and of camel. However, the paintings of the first period, so this period, the most ancient one, of hunters, the age of hunters, have been preserved only just in a few places, mainly in Fezzan and in the mountains of the Sahara Atlas. There is also some alternative periodization that was proposed in 1933 by researchers Joliot. So he published some book this year, and so his periodization looks like this. It had also four periods, and the first one is the era of buffalo, which consisted of realistic drawings of rhinoceroses, of elephants, of giraffes, and people of the so-called Bushman type. So Bushman or Bushman, I believe it's right to say it, or they're also called Sun people. So this is believed to be the oldest surviving culture of the hunter-gatherers in the southern African region. The second period is the age of African elephant, when images of domestic animals appear, including those related to the culture of the sun, a ram with a solar disc on its head, and later a solar bull. Third period is drawings where a horse, wheel, and chariots appears, and fourth is also he called it also camel age. The petroglyphs of Fezzan are rightfully considered the pinnacle of primitive art. The area where these images are located is currently a lifeless desert. On both sides of the dry valley of Matendo rise these dark yellow hot rocks, cracked from the heat, on which the images of some elephants, hippopotamuses, rhinoceroses, giraffes, bulls, antelopes, ostriches, and other animals are clearly visible, as well as figure of archers, of hunters with some darts, and etc. The dimensions of some of these figures, so I mean, these paintings, some of the paintings are, of the enormous size. So some of them are actually getting till like few meters high. So amazing, enormous stuff. In the 4th millennium BC, rock images of large, thick-skinned animals disappeared. What I mean by thick-skinned animals is like elephants, rhinoceroses, and etc. etc. Giraffes, ostriches, and antelopes remained. Instead, images of predators and the first figures of bulls appear in this time. Bulls in different poses and different angles, sometimes with long, sometimes with short horns, with horns bent back or bent in the form of a lyre, become the main object of images in this period of time. This trend reached its peak around the middle of 4th millennium BC, when pastoral tribes appear in Tassili. In this period, along with generous scenes from everyday life, large rock panels depicting cattle herding, some scenes of war, hunting, and grain harvesting appears. There's also some, paintings on, I don't know, some mythological themes, like for example on this theme of fertility. And well, these paintings on the theme of fertility is actually, pretty extended, so basically an 18 plus scenes. Ancient artists, they were not just like physically painting them, they were also, sometimes we can see that they were like basically carving those paintings, well, paintings as we can say, into the rock. However, they were painting, they were using obviously some mineral paints. The dominant colors were yellow, red, some browns. Even at some point, they were actually found some of the blues. However, I haven't found any information what type of pigment was this blue, where they took this blue from. So yeah, but eventually they were using blue color also there. So they used egg white as a binding material, and they were, as you know, and they were painting with their palms, with their hands, with some primitive brushes, and sometimes even with feathers. Around the middle of the 2nd millennium BC, images of horse-drawn war chariots appears in TASSILI. According to the pictures of the rocks, their path can be traced from the coast of the Mediterranean Sea to the upper part of the river Niger. Next to the chariots, the pictures show people who, well, in appearance, so their skin color, you know, some clothing, and everything else, they show that those are clearly not African, like not people from different African tribes, and not people of African cultures. Fair-skinned, tall warriors armed with swords, spears, and darts, with round shields in their hands. So who are they? The ancient Greek historian Herodotus, he wrote about the inhabitants of the Sahara who use horse-drawn war chariots. In ancient times, these people were called Garamantes, and the Roman historian Tacitus, he described also Garamantes as a ferocious tribe that terrorized their neighbors. As modern scientists have established, the basis of this ethnically diverse people was the descendants of ancient Libyans. In the following centuries, Garamantes mixed with local tribes and formed the modern Tuareg and Teda peoples living in the Sahara. The rock art of TASSILI N'AJJER ends with the Camel period, when this animal, which replaced the horses, began to reign supreme in Sahara Desert. And despite the fact that in the middle of the 2nd millennium AD, TASSILI N'AJJER had finally turned into a dry desert that we know now, with just, you know, some lizards, some spiders and snakes in it, the traditions of rock painting were preserved by the local Tuareg nomads until the middle of the 20th century. This is evidenced by schematic drawings found on the walls of French forts built here in the beginning of the 20th century, and even in the wreckage of an airplane that crashed in the Sahara during the Second World War. Some images, they reflect the influence of ancient Egyptian culture, and well, there is not a lot of them, and overall, as I understood from this little information that I found, it is actually being actively discussed, and that you know, they had some kind of what is this, external influence on this art. But you see, interestingly also, that I found that there is this discussion that goes on about influence on this African tribes that were living back then, just in like English resources, because in Soviet one I haven't found. In Soviet one, it's written pretty clearly that there were no influence. This is completely, well, it's Africa, it's African art. They were fine, they were doing it on their own, they were discovering their art on their own, and there were no magical Europeans, like Western Europeans, who are coming and showing everyone how to do everything. Most of the images in this area, in terms of style and content, are undoubtedly of a purely African character. On the frescoes of TASSILI, for example, images of masks were found, similar in shape to the mask that still exists among some peoples of Western Sudan. Individual details of some clothes or some jewelry, hairstyles allow us to establish their close connection with the material culture of the people of tropical Africa quite accurately. And well, we will end this video with one particular image, with one particular topic. So it is an image of so-called white lady. This is not its like a real name, as we can say, but I will tell you the story and you will understand where this name comes from. Getting back to our Henri Lhote, one of the day they were like working, they digging and all of the stuff, and one of the members of Lhote group, archaeological group, he said that, well, I found this very interesting image in a very unusual place. It's very hard to get there, it's pretty isolated, and it's pretty strange. Lhote, obviously, he was, well, curious, he was interested in that. He decided to go and like investigate this strange finding on his own. When he reached this place, and I'm saying again, it was pretty isolated. It was in a highest part of this mountain rocks and all of this, so it was hard to get there. Here he saw a image of a running horned woman. So this is like, mostly this is the name that now we are referring to this painting, to this piece, not the White Lady. So because of the isolation of the place and how difficult it was to get there, Henri, he assumed that the place was sacred and that the woman herself was some kind of goddess. But there were some kind of, obviously, problems with identification. So our Henri Lhote, he was under the influence of his colleague Henri Breul, that I was already mentioning. And as again, I was mentioning this Breul, he was an undisputed authority at the time, and he was like one of the main researchers who believed in this theory, and he was like pushing this theory of outside influence on this African tribes back then, including this Egyptian influence. And thus, because Henri Lhote was under the influence of and he blindly believed to Henri Breul, he also believed that this painting is influenced by Egyptian art. I don't understand what do you see of like Egyptian influence. And the only similar thing that we can say to Egyptian art is that just this figure is enlarged compared to other small figures. So it is definitely, we can say that this figure is somehow very important. So maybe the idea that this is really some kind of goddess, or maybe this is some kind of a queen, actually, like a real queen, like queen warrior. We don't know that. So this is like the only thing that we can see, like I personally can see the similarities with Egyptian. Overall, everything else, I don't see any similarities at all, but well, things like that. And because also in an essay titled The White Lady of Brunberg, Southwest Africa, Her Companions and Her Guards, Breul, he famously claimed that a painting discovered in a small rock shelter in Namibia showed influences of classical antiquity and was not African in origin, but possibly the work of Phoenician travelers from the Mediterranean, of course. Obviously. And well, Lhote, he really blindly believed into this theory, and thus he was providing, pushing this agenda also on his findings. However, you see, it is believed that Lhote, he was actually a victim of a hoax, because some French members of his team made copies of this Egyptianized figures, passing them off as faithful reproductions of authentic Tassili rock wall paintings. And this fakes, they were accepted by Lhote, but at the end of the day, we don't really know still whether he knew that it was some kind of forgery or not. Because of this, because of this painting, this White Lady that Breul found in Namibia, Lhote, he also renamed this running horned woman to White Lady as well, because he also believed that there is some kind of external influence on this image. And obviously, well, scholars right now, they are debating this, and obviously they don't believe in this, and they are completely dismissing this idea and this theory. Some of them, calling this idea even like borderline racist. Who is this woman with horns that is running? Where is she running? Why is she running? Can this place indeed can be considered sacred or something? So Lhote recounted that the running horned woman was found on an isolated rock whose base was hollowed out into a number of small shelters that could not have been used as dwellings. So this remote location, coupled with an image of marked pictorial quality, which, as we can see, depicting a female with two horns on her head, dots on her body, probably a representation of scarification, and wearing such attributes of the dance as armlets and garters, suggested to him that the site and the subject of the painting well, fell outside of just everyday life. Well, modern scholars, they also support the idea of Lhote's. Now, Lhote's believe that this is, this is more a symbolic painting rather than a literal representation of some kind of a rite or something like this. This is everything that I have for today. Just like brief overall information, very interesting. I really hope that you will fall in love with this amazing paintings as I did. And obviously, I mean, we will be getting back to all of these themes in the future. I will, try to find some more information on this, but for now, this is everything that I have. Obviously, this African art, African studying is pretty, like a fairly new topic in the research field because of colonization and everything, and these scholars, they are trying their best, and archaeologists, and we are just finding out there's like a very long way to go to finally, unpack all of this like cultural heritage of Africa. We will be definitely getting back to African art because I'm now searching for some of the books, something like this, because I'm very curious about this. I have like overall vision of all of this, I think as a lot of you also, but I really want to go into depth, and I really want to study some different tribes, different cultures, different stuff, because I have no idea. African art was the part that we did not touch at all in university. I mean, a part of Egyptian art, obviously. But again, Egypt is a completely, it's other planet. But overall, I have no idea. I wanted actually something to prepare something about Morocco, because I'm very fascinated by Morocco. I really, really like it's like, one of the places that I want to visit like, so badly. But I don't know, we'll see, because I cannot find anything, online that I can use. Any books, any mentions, like nothing. But well, I will try to research. But yeah, well, I'm shutting up. Yeah. So again, little brief like travel, as we can say. As usually, what is the most important for me is that you find out something new for yourself today, something interesting. I wish you good evening, good morning, good night, whatever, wherever you are, and we'll hope to see you in the next video. And in the next video, this time I promise we'll be talking about an artist. Yes, hope to see you back. Bye bye.